My name is Barbara Wysocki. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters here in Champaign County. And I want to welcome you all to this very important meeting to help us all understand the issues that will confront the voters as they decide on the future of public schools here in the city of Champaign. I do want to begin by stating that the League of Women Voters does not have a position on this particular school referendum, either its cost, the site selection process, or the process by which Unit 4 arrived at this total package proposal that will be discussed this evening. The League of Women Voters, though, does support public education throughout not only Illinois, but also throughout the country, and is very committed to the appropriate funding of it by state governments. The League also believes it is their civic responsibility to encourage public dialogue in advance of the November election, ensuring that the electorate is fully informed as they weigh their decisions. Our speaker this evening is going to be Dr. Judy Wiegand. She is the superintendent of Unit 4 schools. The other speakers are going to be you, members of the public who have come here this evening, hopefully with some questions, hopefully with some comments about this referendum and what it means to the future of the city of Champaign. The ground rules for tonight are going to be very simple. The presentation will take about 20-25 minutes. They've been doing this on a number of occasions, so I'm sure they have their talk down to the second. Following the presentation, members of the audience will then have an opportunity to ask their questions. We do have Trish Crowley, who will be moving around the room with a microphone, and we do ask that you ask your questions at that point because we are taping this program, and to ensure that your question does get heard on the video, it is important that you have a microphone in front of you. Questions and comments should really focus on the topic at hand. So they should be of such nature to increase our understanding of the school referendum. We're going to have a bit of a stopwatch on this with essentially, I think, a rather generous limit. We figured 3 minutes per question, and you probably won't even need that much. And what we really want to do is avoid people using this opportunity to present their own agenda. So if you have a comment to make, if you have a question to get at, it would help if you got it to a very succinct statement. We will also limit the responder to a 2-minute response so that we can cover everyone's questions in the room and be able to cover as much ground as we possibly can. If you're a little shy about public speaking, we have index cards in the back of the room where you can write down your questions, hand them to Ms. Crowley, and either she will read them or I will read them. And we will read them as they are written. We hope to conclude this evening by 8:30, 8:45 at the very latest, because the library really does want to close at 9 o'clock. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Wiegand to step forward and to tell us about this particular referendum.
Thank you, Barbara. I did. I did. It didn't. It's up here. There we go. Okay. Have to be patient, correct? Good evening, everyone. I'm Judy Wiegand, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as superintendent for Champaign Unit 4 schools. I have been in the district. I believe this is going to be my 30th year in public education and 28 years here in Champaign Unit 4. And with me this evening, I have a few individuals that I'd like to acknowledge. Our board president, Lori Bonnet, is in the audience, as well as board member Karis Lee. And I'll also be calling Mr. Mark Shagnon, who is our Director of Career and Educational Programming for our district. And so our destination in Unit 4 would be a new Central High School and a renovated Centennial High School. And so I'd like to share with you information regarding this journey. So why move in this direction? We certainly believe that it's important to provide our students educational environments that are going to promote 21st century education. And we're certainly finding that we want to build on programs that we currently have in our schools, but are unable to expand, for example, at Central, and we also cannot offer at Centennial High School in the area of career and industrial technology. One of the items would be the selection of the site for the new Central High School. And this has really been an 8-year journey. And so over the course of this last year or so, the board defined very objective criteria for the selection of the site, and they used that criteria for all of the different sites. And then based on the scoring of those sites, the board made the decision to purchase 80 acres, which is up on the corner of Neal and Interstate Drive, and then the northern border would be Olympian Drive. The work that we do in the district is certainly guided by the district's strategic plan. And the district strategic plan, which is also called Great Schools Together, identifies those baseline standards that community members came together and defined they wanted to see in all of our schools. And so on the screen right now, you'll find a number of items that were defined as baseline standards for all our schools, but are not present in one or both of our high schools. So just to name a few of those, certainly taking a look at an adequate space for a growing student population, having enough science labs for students. It is great that we have more and more students enrolling in science classes, but they deserve to take that science class where there's an actual lab and not just in a regular classroom. When it comes to energy efficiency and green building practices, a high priority for our district. I was just reviewing a report this evening from our grant writer when we take a look over the last few years from 2011 up to now. And the amount of money that the district has received in grants is quite phenomenal. I want to say it's close to a little over $2 million in grants to help when it came to Booker T. Washington, Carrie Busey, as well as our renovated buildings. So we certainly want to continue and strive to have our buildings to be as energy efficient as possible. And we also certainly want to eliminate any portable classrooms. We already have a trailer in front of Centennial High School, and we also will be taking a look at having to add additional trailers at Centennial, as well as Central High School, if we do not address our capacity issue. When we talk about adequate classroom space, we as a community hold so high our fine arts. And I think it is wonderful what we are able to do with our students in the area of fine arts. I know that at Central, you'll see here Mr. John Curry and his marching band and having their practice in a room that's designed for maybe 40 to 50 students, and he already has over 100 students. When we talk about having up-to-date science classrooms, this is a science classroom at Central. Up-to-date technology and computer labs. This is a lab at Centennial High School. And then a science lab at Centennial High School. And I could probably talk all day about the wonderful things that take place in these classrooms and the high quality education that our students receive day in and day out by our teachers. But you'll also hear from our teachers regarding the need for a different space so that they can do more collaborative work, as well as being able to do some of the things that they want to do with students but are simply prohibited to do those by our current classrooms. I would say for me, one of the biggest issues deals with our capacity. Currently, we are at 103% capacity at both our high schools. When we look to the future and we look at 2022, we'll be over up to 118 to 120% capacity at our high schools. And our students are here in kindergarten, first, second, and third, where we have over 800 students. And we continue to enroll more and more students. For example, this year, we have close to 300 more students than what we planned for across K-12. A very good problem to have. Champaign is a growing community, but it also means that we need to respond to that growth by providing adequate facilities. One question I was asked to address was, what about the size of the school? And so when you take a look at the proposed new high school and the renovations to Centennial High School, it'll put us right in the middle of other schools. If we do nothing, we stay where we are now, and that would be at the very low end when it comes to square footage for students. So we're not asking, or the referendum certainly doesn't ask for the plans to go way up here, but certainly to be in the middle. So the board made the decision to pass the resolution in August asking for $149 million. And that would be 97 or close to 98 million for a new central high school. And you see the cost breakdown by the different major categories on the screen. And then 51 million for a renovated Centennial High School. And what are the tax implications? The slide right now shows our current tax rate. And with the passage of a $149 million referendum, it would still keep us at the lower end with just adding 50 cents here. Other questions that have come up throughout this process. Why not just go with one large high school? Why not go with 3 smaller high schools? Throughout the course of this process, going back to 2012-13 and into 13-14, held a number of community forums, did a number of online surveys, as well as paper surveys to get the input from the community, and it became very clear that the community wanted to continue with the 2 high schools that we currently have to maintain that tradition of Champaign Central High School and then Champaign Centennial High School. I would like to talk a little bit about what would be featured in the new and renovated schools. It is not just building another large box with small boxes inside. It's going to be very important that as we move into a design phase for the schools, that we're able to be responsive to the changing needs of our community and the economy. And it's hard to predict, with the pace that things change today, what we will need 20, 30 years, 40 years down the road. So as we take a look at the design for the different classroom spaces, it's going to be important that we have spaces that are going to be flexible and versatile. Still allow for the more traditional, maybe lecture approach, but also be allowing students to move and work in small groups and have presentation spaces. And this is just another image of that space. We currently have at Booker T. Washington a wonderful STEM lab for our students. And again, Booker T. Washington was built using the 1% sales tax. As superintendent, it's important for me that as these students have this type of experience at elementary, as they progress through our system, they have a similar experience at middle and into high school. As we took a look at other high schools and other programs throughout the country, we certainly note this is Blue Valley, which is right outside Kansas City. And again, high school students being able to come together in a larger space for collaboration as well as presentation. DeKalb recently built a new high school. And here is a picture of their career and technical education lab. And again, their industrial tech lab. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota, again, the career and technical education opportunities that are provided for students. And you'll notice here the different banners from different companies in the area partnering with the school district to provide these type of experiences. And here's another image of their robotics lab, a program that we're not able to offer at this time for our students. Before I go into the site plans and project phasing, I do have Mr. Mark Chagnon, and he has been the leader when it comes to our programming with career and technical education. So I'd like for him to maybe just say a few words regarding, so what's going to be different about the new schools? I think that's an important piece that we need to address.
Thank you, Dr. Wiegand. It is my pleasure to be here tonight. I am a graduate of Champaign Central High School back in 1970, so it's sweet and sour that I think about what we're hoping to do. But what I've seen so far in the last 16 years in working for Champaign schools, our students deserve an opportunity to live and work in a school that is similar to what they would see in the real world. I am particularly involved with developing partnerships and have sought out numerous partnerships in the Champaign-Urbana area of industry, manufacturing, trades that can come in and work with our students. But at this point, in the past 15 or so years, we have not had any opportunities, let's say, for our students to do welding. Now, that's a career field that people don't realize possibly that there's such a large group of individuals in this country who need welders. And last count, there was about 600,000 welding positions open in this country for jobs that are paying very, very well, a very high-skilled job. If our school district is going to allow our students to have the opportunity to compete for those high-skilled jobs, we need to offer that opportunity to our kids. So when I go to Champaign Central this past year, and I asked one of the teachers that we have to help me put together something for welding, he and a student worked over the summer to put together with baling wire and tape and old sheet metal, 8 different welding booths for our kids to use. And we offered that to our students as a welding class. And to our surprise, we had 81 students sign up this year to take welding 1 in our high school. And of that 81 students, you'll be glad to know 17 were female. So I was excited about that and thrilled, but realized that we can only offer welding at Champaign Central in an old automotive shop that is dreary, dark, and a place that you just have to have vision, I guess, to want to be a welder. Our students at Centennial walk in the doors there and go, Mr. Chagnon, where are the opportunities for automotive? Where are the opportunities for woodworking? Where are the opportunities to build a home? Where are the opportunities for me, Mr. Chagnon, to work in industrial tech or to prepare for the manufacturing world that we have before us? And there is no space for that. And Centennial is full. If you take a walk through, you will see that every room in that building is full all day long. and there is no space to put students now. And without the trailer in front of that school, we would have a number of classes that I don't know where they would be this year. So as I look at what we can do with our partnerships with the trades, I'm excited to go to South Dakota this summer, and they actually have a building where they allow their students to build a home for Habitat for Humanity. And then that home, when it's completed, they take that home across town, and the entire city of 180,000 people stop what they're doing to cheer the students and the school for what it's done for that community. So here you give an opportunity for a young man or young lady to help build a home, learn the trade, and have a chance to not only do that, and maybe go into it as a career, or maybe just know how to work on their own home when they get older, but to also give that home to a family who needs that in that community. So having a school that can collaborate with and work with their community is awesome. And I'll leave this with you. They also have a culinary arts division there, which I hope to have in our new high school, which would not look like the culinary arts that we grew up with, where we would go into mom's kitchen with an oven and stove and cook a cake, or bake a cake, I guess. They actually have an industrial kitchen, which you would see in a restaurant such as Houlihan's or Big Grove. Wherever you go, it would have a huge kitchen. And to the side of it, it had a living, a dining area, an area where you can serve food. They also have an agricultural program there where they grow food. So they're growing the food, they're cooking it inside the school, and then that evening, I said, what are you doing? Well, our first group that we're inviting in for a dinner in August will be the City Council from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to come and have their meeting here in our dining area and be served by our students, the dinner that night that was grown by our students. That's the kind of vision that I have for our new high school, and that's the kind of opportunity I think we can do for Centennial High School. So I appreciate Dr. Wiegand asking me to be here tonight.
I think it's critical that the public schools are a partner with other agencies in our community and help when it comes to economic development. And so what Mark has mentioned, we're able to do on a very small scale right now with the facilities that we have. We do have partnerships with, like for example, precision manufacturing, right, and providing our students an opportunity along with early college opportunities at Parkland College. But when we talk about those beginning experiences, in order to even get into the advanced programs, we need to have the spaces and the programs at our high schools in order to have our students get into those advanced programs. I believe that the public schools can be that pipeline for that workforce development. I'll just share briefly some of the site plans. So this is Centennial High School. The plan is to have an addition on the south end. This would be Jefferson down here. Fill in the courtyard for classroom spaces. Add space here for career and technical education, and additional physical education space here. I think I have a better image as we can move forward. So again, on the south end, these would be learning studios, otherwise known as classrooms, that I had shown earlier. There still would be a courtyard, but it would be here, where the other courtyard would be filled in order to provide additional classroom space. If you're familiar with Centennial, the main office is on that second floor, and there's this breezeway underneath. That would be filled in, and the main offices would be on that first floor, so that would certainly have easier access and visibility. Then here would be the career and technical education spaces, and then I said additional physical education space, and then updating the field. I think it's also important when it comes to Centennial, when it comes to the renovation piece, the mechanical and electrical systems, as well as interior remodeling, as well as putting in exterior windows. This would be the new Central High School site. So on the south, you have Interstate Drive. Currently, it does not extend all the way, so that would have to need to be extended, and we are working with the city on those plans, as well as Neal Street being extended out here to Olympian, which would really be way out here. This is Ashland Park subdivision here. As you can see, parking, but most important, obviously, the new Central High School, and then different fields. This is the question that has been submitted to the county clerk that will be on the ballot November 4th. And again, our destination, 21st Century High Schools for Champaign for our students at both Central and Centennial High School. And so I will open it up at this point for questions.
Okay, if anyone has any questions, you want to put up your hand and I'll come and you can give ourselves a little more light.
That's good.
So we have any questions? We have a very.
There we go.
Here you go. Just speaking with Edna.
Well, I have a comment. Not a
Yes.
question. And I am in general very supportive of education, and I don't have a problem with voting for a tax increase, except that I have a big problem with the proposed location.
Okay.
And what I want to talk about is traffic safety, because that, my assumptions are that the more miles people drive, the more car accidents happen. And, right now, the biggest time for car accidents is between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. That's about the same time of day as students get out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Motorcycle vehicle accidents are the leading cause of death for U.S. teenagers, and teenage drivers per mile are 3 times more likely to be in a fatal crash than other drivers. So, you look at this area that is north of the interstate, and it just seems really horrific to me. I mean, I would expect that more families are going to be sending their teenagers in the car to school.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who gets to that school is going to be driving more miles. Some of these, we're going to have people trying to go north-south and east-west at the same time. So, and then students get out at the end of the day, and here they are in this big commercial district, separating them from home. So the big hurdle for me on this is where this location is.
Sure.
I have a big problem with it.
Okay, all right. No, thank you for your comments. May I respond? Okay. When it comes to the location, I think it has been stated many times that there was no perfect location for the new Central High School. And so the board certainly took a look at sites that would have been more interior and wouldn't have required going to the north side of the community. Those sites simply were not feasible for the board to pursue. And so we certainly are working with the Regional Planning Commission when it comes to traffic studies. We are also continuing our conversations with the City of Champaign and the Champaign Park District regarding extending sidewalks, a pedestrian bridge possibly, as well as trails and bike paths. I know that I've heard that concern regarding the traffic, and I think it's important to keep in mind too that the new Central High School is approximately 4 miles from the current Central High School, and certainly taking a look at traffic patterns and doing all that we can to, certainly as the new school opens, to address any sort of student safety. And always keep in mind that a high school is going to be a 50 to 70-year investment for the community. And so knowing that this is going to be the area of growth for the community, I do see more and more students and families living closer to that site.
Okay, I have a couple of written questions
Sure.
here, so I'll give them to you. It's obvious that Unifor has a great amount of deferred maintenance in its existing school buildings. How is the district planning ahead to ensure that this won't happen with the new buildings and rebuild buildings?
Sure. Very good question. So the 1% sales tax has been dedicated to the rebuilding of schools as well as the renovation of several elementary schools. And so those projects certainly have addressed, I would say, infill when it comes to our schools. But also from that 1% sales tax, we have money set aside into the capital projects. And so we report each year to the board a 10-year plan when it comes to capital improvements and the funding that's going to be used for those capital improvements. And I'll also say that because of state code, as well as the commitment by the board to have our schools LEED certified, we will actually have schools that are more energy efficient and won't require as much maintenance as our older buildings.
Okay, and here's the next question. What are the projected increased transportation costs and how will they be covered?
Good. So currently, we can only look at where our students where they currently reside and which high schools they are assigned to. Once the referendum passes, we do need to redistrict. And once we do that redistricting, we'll be able to have a more accurate cost when it comes to transportation. So we'll certainly continue to work with MTD to see what can be done when it comes to transportation at the new site, as well as taking a look at our own fleet and being able to provide additional buses if those are needed. And as I mentioned before, continuing to work with the city and the park district. They're committed to making the site as accessible as possible for our community.
Okay, and recognizing that you don't have exact numbers at this point,
Yes.
do you have any estimates for numbers of the increase over the current site?
No, I don't have I don't.
Okay, any other questions?
Hi, I was thrilled at the site having expanded ag and, well, what was called industrial arts in
Yes.
my day,
Mm-hmm.
classrooms. Can I ask a bit, is it just a matter of there hasn't been enough room for them
Yes.
in recent years, or were they phased out because of changes in what people expected students to be taught? And
Mhm.
how will that
Mhm.
be addressed? Because there's definitely a
Mhm.
need for those programs now. And how will you,
Mhm.
looking into the future, keep those developed?
Yes. Yes to both your questions. So I will start with the space issue at our schools. And so I was at Centennial High School for 20 years and served as principal for the last 6 of those years that I was there. And because of the increased student population and the need for classroom space, we had to convert what were shops into classrooms. At Central, we have one shop that Mark tells me is the same that when he went to Central. And so certainly that need for space was one piece of it. I'll also say as a country, with No Child Left Behind, there was certainly a push regarding college readiness. And I would certainly agree that every student should have the opportunity and should be college ready, because all our students need some sort of post-secondary education. But for whatever reason, we neglected the fact that there are very well-paying jobs in the trades. And so we certainly see that now as we see a workforce that is starting to retire and industries that's very worried about how they're going to replace that workforce. We certainly hear that from Craft and certainly work with them regarding that piece of it. So I serve on the board for the Economic Development Council for the county. And one of their goals in their strategic plan is workforce development. And so coming to the table and being able to, again, be that partner and knowing that we can be that pipeline for local industry and manufacturing, I think is very exciting.
Okay, and I have a question. The major alternative to the site selected by the school board for the Central High School was the Spalding Park area.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us the specifics that led the board to reject that as the new site?
Mm-hmm. So Spalding Park was certainly a great location, but not a very good site itself. So taking a look at the acreage that was available with the park, the homes that would need to be acquired by the board in order to build a school that would be large enough to accommodate for our capacity, as well as providing athletic fields and PE spaces, so students wouldn't have to travel as they do now. And the cost of all of that acquisition of the property, as well as preparing the site then for building, became cost prohibitive. So the board stayed with their decision that they made back in January, and that was to worth the 80 acres on Interstate and Neal. I don't know if there's any other points. Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody else?
On that piece, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is probably not the most positive question
Yes.
I've ever asked, but in the event this referendum does not pass,
Mhm.
what adjustments or changes will Unit 4 have to make to accommodate the increasing pressures that you've talked about earlier?
Mhm.
Or is there already some discussion about, well, if not in 2014, 2016, 2018?
Mhm. Sure. So,
Sounds like redistricting to me.
yes, and so certainly if the referendum would not pass in November, analyzing why, and then having the board make a decision about what they would like to do in April. In the meantime, for myself as superintendent and the administration team, we would have to take a look, and we've already started having these conversations regarding additional trailers at Centennial. At Central, we've already taken a look and know that the trailers would have to go in the, there's this grassy area on the other side of Park, and according to our operations and maintenance director, John Ayers, that's really the only place they can go, so we would have to set those up there. And those trailers would have to have actual restroom facilities there, so they take up even more space. And because of the capacity issues and the number of students that came to us this year, we're also taking a look at where we'd put a trailer at Edison and at Franklin. And so I think that's a very real possibility that we will be putting more and more trailers in front of our high schools and then also our middle schools.
So I think I heard you say earlier that if this were to pass, it's only a 50-cent per $100 assessed valuation increase.
For the tax rate, so when it comes to the assessed valuation, it is $140 per year for 100,000 of assessed valuation for homes. So there's two different pieces. Sure, certainly. So for every 100,000 of assessed valuation for a home, the cost is $140 for that year, or $11 to $12 a month. The other financial information we put out is what is our tax rate already compared to other schools and other districts. And so that was the slide that I had up earlier, was the actual tax rate itself.
Well, with that actual tax rate, isn't that almost a 12% increase? I mean, 50 cents and 450?
I don't believe so. It'd go from 4.3 to 4.8, so I'm trying to do some mental math, and I don't believe that's 12%.
And the other question I had, and I haven't seen this anyplace, is how much of the $149 million is not for physical education, but how much of it is for athletics?
Less than 8% of the cost, because that question has been asked. Very good, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Well, yeah, I had a question about the indirect costs. And I don't know if you could speak to any of those when you broke it down, a bit about what those would be.
Sure. Actually, yes. So we certainly see when it comes to indirect costs are a lot when it comes to the contingency pieces that we have, as well as there were development costs as well. So, trying to. engineering fees and so forth, and the contingency fees for when we have projects, we always put in the contingency amount in case, especially when it comes to a renovation, because we certainly ran into those issues when we did Westview, and needing to have those additional funds off to the side because you never know what you're going to uncover when you start digging into and renovating a building. So.
Any other questions?
This doesn't involve the high school as much as I'm concerned about what's going to happen to Dr. Howard. There have been several other grade schools that seem to be in good condition that have been renovated, and Dr. Howard has been on the list for years and years with poor site staging of staged.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Many problems.
Yes. Yes.
And I wondered what the school board is going to do about that.
Mm-hmm. The school board really wanted to include Dr. Howard as part of this referendum. And when we took a look at the costs, trying to go above $150 million for a referendum was just out of the question. It was becoming too costly. And so it was a very difficult decision to make. And they went back to the data. What did the community say during the different forums and surveys that were done? And certainly the community said that the highest priority was to address the high schools, and also because of our capacity issues and looking at these students who are currently at the elementary and going into high school and making sure we do have space for them. I know that the 1% sales tax revenues, once they become available again for the district, and I know that's 10 years out, but I believe Dr. Howard is the first priority. Is there anything?
Any other questions? Okay, well, we want to thank Dr. Wiegand for coming tonight, and I'll remind everyone that if you want to take a look at your video presence, that this will be broadcast on UPTV, Channel 6, cable channel, and will also, I think, be available streaming from the League of Women Voters website.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.